Before Nike became a $190 billion empire, before the swoosh meant speed, strength, and cultural dominance, it was just an idea born from discomfort. The kind of discomfort that sits deep inside ambitious people when the world is too slow to catch up with their vision. The Nike story doesn't start with a product, it starts with obsession. It starts with Phil Knight running across a track in Oregon, frustrated by the heaviness of his shoes and dreaming of something lighter. Not just in weight, but in purpose. Something fast, something new. He wasn't thinking about revolutionizing global branding or building an empire. He was just a runner trying to shave seconds off his time. But like all great stories, this one begins where utility meets vision. Knight knew something the world didn't. That performance wasn't just physical, it was psychological. And if you could hack how people feel, if you could change what they believe about a product, you could build something unstoppable. The earliest incarnation of Nike wasn't even called Nike. It was Blue Ribbon Sports, a distribution company importing Japanese running shoes from Onitsuka Tiger. Knight made a deal with a Japanese manufacturer, flew back to the US, and began selling shoes out of the trunk of his car. He wasn't a titan, he was a scrappy hustler with a weird idea. But what he had, and what most people never develop, was vision. He didn't see the shoes. He saw the gap between what athletes had and what they needed. Then came Bill Bowerman, track coach, tinkerer, genius. While Knight was figuring out how to distribute, Bowerman was melting rubber and waffle irons, trying to design soles that grip the track like claws. Together, they didn't just want to sell shoes. They wanted to build a better athlete from the ground up. Their early designs weren't perfect. They weren't sleek. They weren't fashionable, but they were different. And different in the hands of the right storyteller is dangerous. The swoosh came next. Designed by a student named Carolyn Davidson for $35. She thought it looked okay. Knight thought it was fine, but it wasn't about the design, it was about what it represented. Movement, speed, simplicity, one symbol, one identity, and they owned it. By the 1970s, they were ready to drop Onitsuka and go all in on their own brand, and they chose the name Nike, the Greek goddess of victory, subtle, powerful, mythological. From day one, this wasn't just about shoes anymore. This was about legacy. The competition was brutal. Adidas dominated Europe. Puma had the cool factor. Reebok was rising, but Nike didn't try to be the cheapest or the most stylish. They focused on attitude. They marketed to the underdog, the grinder, the athlete who bled and broke and got back up. Nike was for the strivers, the hungry, the ones with something to prove. And then they found their weapon, storytelling. Other brands sold features. Nike sold identity. From the very beginning, Nike knew something crucial. People don't buy products. They buy how a product makes them feel about themselves. A faster shoe isn't just faster. It makes you feel faster, stronger, more capable, more powerful. And if they could tap into that belief, they could build an army of loyalists who weren't just customers. They were missionaries. When they started sponsoring athletes, it wasn't about fame. It was about narrative. Every athlete they signed had to mean something. Not just talent, but a story, a trajectory, conflict, and triumph. Nike didn't just slap logos on people. They embedded themselves into origin stories. Then came 1984, the deal that would change everything. Michael Jordan was a rising star, but he didn't want to sign with Nike. He wanted Adidas. He respected Adidas, but Nike offered him something Adidas didn't. His own shoe. Not just a deal, a legacy. The Air Jordan. They took a risk. They built an entire line around a player who hadn't yet proven himself at the NBA level. They poured money into marketing. They shot commercials like movies. And when the NBA banned Jordan's black and red sneakers for violating uniform rules, Nike didn't apologize. They built a campaign around it, like banned by the NBA. That was the slogan. What was supposed to be punishment became legend. Kids didn't just want Air Jordans. They wanted what they represented. Rebellion, power, style. Cool. The shoes didn't make you jump higher. They made you feel untouchable. And suddenly, Nike had unlocked the formula. It wasn't about footwear anymore. It was about myth. Air Jordans weren't just a hit, they were a cultural detonation. In the first year alone, Nike expected to sell $3 million worth. They sold $126 million. And more importantly, they didn't just win a category, they created it. Signature shoes, athlete-first branding, scarcity-driven hype. All of it started here. Every sneaker drop today, every resale frenzy, every overnight line outside a mall, it traces back to Jordan. But Nike wasn't done. They had just discovered the holy trinity of modern branding: celebrity, scarcity, story, and they knew how to weaponize all three. Their commercials didn't talk about arch support or materials. They talked about greatness, about fear, about doubt, about the demons in your head. Just do it. When that line debuted in 1988, it wasn't a slogan, it was a commandment, a mantra, a challenge. It didn't ask, it dared. Here's what most people don't know. The phrase "just do it" was inspired by a death row inmate. A man facing execution said, "Let's do it." Nike's ad team twisted it into something universal, raw, emotional, and impossible to ignore. That's how far they went to connect psychology to product, and it worked, because while competitors were selling shoes, Nike was selling belief systems. Want to be a champion? Wear Nike. Want to prove something to the world? Wear Nike. Want to shut out fear, pain, and limits? Wear Nike. They weren't just in sports anymore. They were in culture. Rap music embraced them. Skaters adopted them. Gang members wore them like armor. Even kids who never played a sport, they still wore Nikes because it said something about them, something powerful, something primal. As Nike grew, they mastered the art of architecting identity. They didn't target demographics, they created them. Nike didn't follow culture, they built it. Their athletes became icons, their campaigns became scripture. They weren't advertising, they were myth making, and yet they never lost the edge. Every time competitors caught up, Nike evolved. In the 2000s, they pivoted again, not with a product, but with a platform. Nike Plus was launched, a partnership with Apple. It turned your shoes into data machines. Suddenly, your run wasn't just a run, it was a metric, a competition, a social flex, and behind it all was the Swoosh, your digital trainer, motivator, and judge. And then they pushed it further. Nike Training Club, Nike Run Club, personalized plans, motivation by algorithm, performance tracking. They weren't just outfitting athletes, they were engineering them. Nike had gone from a shoe company to a behavioral technology company, and nobody noticed. That's the genius. You didn't even realize how deeply embedded they were in your life. Your gym bag, your phone, your social feed. Nike was there, watching, nudging, reinforcing, rewarding, always with one message: you can do more. Just do it. Even their failures turned into fuel. When the Nike Fuel Band failed, it didn't matter. It was a signal, a flag in the ground. Nike was experimenting in spaces their rivals didn't even understand. They didn't fear flops, they feared stagnation. And that's what made them so dangerous. Because their real product was never sneakers. It was aspiration. They told you that the pain you feel on a treadmill is sacred, that pushing yourself until you throw up is noble, that quitting is betrayal, and every stitch, every sole, every swoosh reinforced that belief. Meanwhile, they studied your behavior, your dreams, your doubts. Nike wasn't selling to your feet, they were selling to your identity, and they had decades of psychological warfare experience. Every new campaign dug deeper. Find your greatness, risk everything, take it to the next level, you can't stop us. Each message was a scalpel carving away your excuses. They knew exactly how to trigger your fears of being average, weak, forgotten, and position Nike as the antidote. They weren't selling products, they were selling redemption. By now, Nike was more than a brand. It was a language, a religion, and every consumer was a believer, preaching through their outfit, their workouts, their grind. Nike understood something Wall Street had known for decades: scarcity sells. If everyone can have it, no one wants it. But if only some people can have it, if you make them fight for it, wait for it, crave it, then you can turn a $5 product into a $500 obsession. So they stopped making enough. They started dropping limited releases, exclusive colorways, one-time drops. They didn't just limit the supply, they created rituals of acquisition. Wake up at 7 a.m., hit the SNKRS app, pray for a win, lose, repeat. Every L made you want the W more. People weren't just buying shoes anymore. They were entering lotteries, competing in digital arenas. Winning became a badge of honor. Losing became fuel. And Nike controlled the game. The supply, the access, the emotion. They turned consumers into gamblers. And then they let resale culture explode. While other companies fought scalpers, Nike watched as $150 shoes sold for $1,000. resellers. They let it happen because every insane resale validated the original hype. It proved demand. It amplified value. It made every drop feel like a chance to hit the jackpot. Sneakerheads became day traders. Hype beasts became investors. And Nike didn't have to lift a finger. The market did the work. But here's the secret. They planned for it. They built it this way. They created intentional chaos. They leaked just enough info, dropped cryptic hints, used influencers to stir frenzy, and they used data, deep behavioral data, to decide what to drop, when, and to whom. Nike isn't playing fashion. They're playing psychology. Every drop is a dopamine spike, a test of loyalty, a demonstration of control. You don't buy Nikes anymore. You earn them. Even their anti-resale moves were strategic. When they cracked down on bots or canceled orders, it wasn't to stop resellers. It was to protect the illusion of purity, to make fans believe they were fighting for the little guy. But behind the curtain, Nike thrives when people beg for more, and the storytelling never stopped. Each limited release wasn't just a color or material. It was a story, a tribute, a reference, a moment in culture, a conversation, something you could explain, flex, and embed into your own narrative. Nike trained a generation to see sneakers not as shoes, but as status artifacts, and they embedded that status into everything. Social media made it worse or better, depending on your point of view. Every photo, every fit pic, every flex, Nike was there. UGC wasn't just content, it was free advertising, viral, endless, self-reinforcing, and Nike kept feeding the machine. Travis Scott collabs, Off-White collabs, Dior collabs, each one rarer, each one louder, each one timed like a Swiss watch. You weren't just wearing shoes anymore. You were wearing culture, wearing currency. And while everyone else tried to keep up, Nike was already pivoting. They moved into virtual fashion, NFT sneakers, AR try-ons, digital drops. People were buying shoes they couldn't wear just to own the idea of them. Nike understood in the age of identity, value doesn't come from utility. It comes from symbolism. That's what they sell now. Nike isn't a sportswear company. It's a meaning company. They sell what things mean to you, not what they do. Nike never needed schools. They built something better, culture as curriculum. While other brands bought ads, Nike built belief systems. And they did it by whispering into the right ears at the right age. Kids didn't learn about Nike from commercials. They learned on playgrounds, in locker rooms, in rap lyrics, in TikTok challenges. Every time a sneaker was name dropped in a verse, shown in a fit check, or worn by a gaming streamer, Nike gained ground without paying a cent. That's infiltration, not marketing. They didn't knock on the door of Gen Z. They were already inside, in memes, in challenges, in group chats. They understood that the next generation doesn't trust ads. They trust signals, and Nike became the ultimate status signal, coded in a swoosh. Even their mistakes turned into lessons. When Nike released misfires, weird designs, confusing drops, or polarizing campaigns, they didn't retreat. They let the internet roast them, because every meme, every comment, every hate video was still attention, and attention is oxygen. They learned how to thrive in backlash. In fact, they engineered some of it. Remember when they backed Colin Kaepernick? Millions called for a boycott, but Nike wasn't worried. They didn't care about everyone. They cared about the right ones. And that move, it galvanized a generation. Sales surged, relevance exploded. The brand became bigger than sport. And that's the game. Relevance over reach. Nike knew that trying to please everyone is a losing strategy. Instead, they chose sides, carefully, tactically, emotionally, and they won loyalty deeper than discounts ever could. Then they pushed further. They launched Nike Adventure Club, a sneaker subscription for kids. Parents didn't just buy shoes, they bought a program, a membership, a pipeline, one that starts at age 5, and with every package came messaging, activities, identity-shaping content. It wasn't about sneakers, it was about initiating future customers into a lifestyle. By the time those kids hit 18, they didn't just like Nike, they belonged to it, and that's the strategy. Brand as upbringing. Then came the digital avatars. As the world shifted online into games, metaverses, and digital hangouts, Nike followed, not with billboards, with skins, drops in Fortnite, partnerships with Roblox, virtual kicks that your avatar could wear. For some kids, their first pair of Nikes weren't real, they were code. Nike saw that the battle for identity had moved online, and they planted their flag early. They weren't selling function anymore. They were selling recognition in virtual tribes. And what about creators? Nike didn't beg influencers to work with them. They watched, identified trend makers before they blew up, sent gear, gave access, and let the creators compete to be seen. Because being associated with Nike isn't just a brand deal, it's a badge. Even rejection became valuable. If Nike didn't pick you, you still won clout just for being close. That's dominance. Every part of their strategy whispered the same message. Nike is where the future lives. While other companies built products, Nike built gravity, and anyone who wanted to be seen. Athletes, musicians, creators, rebels, they orbited the swoosh. Nike's not just a brand, it's a corporate religion. It has symbols, rituals, sacred phrases, high priests, temples, pilgrimages, and millions of followers who spread the gospel without ever being asked. Let's break that down. The swoosh isn't a logo, it's an icon. People tattoo it, paint it, worship it. Its simplicity is its power. Fast, eternal, adaptable, one curve, infinite meaning. Just do it isn't a slogan, it's scripture. A mantra burned into muscle memory, whispered before exams, screamed before deadlifts, printed on walls like commandments. Air Jordans aren't shoes, they're holy relics. Touched, displayed, never worn, resold, protected, elevated. Every pair carries legacy, not rubber. Nike Towns aren't stores, they're temples. High ceilings, marble floors, screens glowing like stained glass. Not selling, but preaching. Every inch designed to make you feel small, and Nike feel divine. Nike isn't selling sneakers anymore. It's selling ascension, and their final boss move. They're now taking that belief system and embedding it into everything. Health, tech, finance, even AI. Their vision isn't just that you wear Nike, it's that you live Nike. Through apps that track your steps, through coaching platforms that guide your workouts, through AI trainers that speak in swoosh certified tone, through ecosystems where every calorie burned and breath taken can be logged, scored, gamified. Nike isn't motivating you anymore. It's monitoring you, guiding you, reprogramming your habits to align with its values. It started with a shoe. Now it's behavioral engineering at scale. And competitors, they don't even realize they've lost. Adidas tries collabs. Puma tries nostalgia. Under Armour tries performance tech. But they're playing catch up in a race that Nike's already finished 3 times. Because Nike doesn't sell what you wear. It sells who you are when you wear it. Even luxury brands, Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton, they envy Nike because Nike did the impossible. It democratized elitism, made it affordable, aspirational, and addictively viral. You don't need to be rich to feel powerful in Nikes. You just need to believe. That's the magic. Nike made belief profitable. They turned sweat into currency, fear into loyalty, resistance into religion, and now they're preparing for the next evolution, the post-hype era, where scarcity no longer drives desire, where Gen Alpha won't care about Jordans, where attention spans collapse. But Nike is already adapting, building AI-generated design labs, creating virtual athletes, exploring shoes that respond to mood, posture, micro-tension, sneakers that change color, soles that adapt to terrain, brand expressions that evolve with you in real time. And behind all of it, data, feedback loops, personalization, meaning. The future of Nike isn't fashion, it's feeling. A direct plug into your ambition, your insecurity, your ego. Because when you look in the mirror, Nike wants to be the voice in your head that says, you can be more, just do it. And when that voice sounds just like your own, they've won.